Report on the City Council regular meeting of June 23rd, 2015. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, the Lord's Prayer, and a moment of silence for our men and women serving at this state. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
our Father, who art
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mike Snyder,
Present.
Gabe Belo,
Present.
Lisa Sardi, present. Beth Gilman,
Present.
Jerry Trolley,
Present.
Nicole DeFridas, present. Margaret Phillips,
Present. Thank you. You have before you the minutes of the May 26th meeting and the June 9th meeting. Huh? Oh, we don't have them? Okay, never mind. The chair notes that certification has been received regarding compliance with the rules and notification of this meeting, and we will now go to public comment for the individuals that have signed in. Please remember that there is a 5-minute limit.
Rick Noter, 608 East Perry Street.
You have before you tonight a totally worthless piece of legislation, Ordinance 1215. The Lighthouse Conservancy has already stated that it's not acceptable to them. I don't know why you would even have it on the agenda, let alone vote on it. The only reason I can think of is that you feel the lighthouse is not of much significance to the community. You're just creating a dead end. At the 2 Parks and Recreation meetings I attended, it was mentioned several times that the reason for passing this ordinance was that all the previous city contracts have a must vacate without cause phrase in them. I think that's the worst possible reason to pass any ordinance. The old "we've always done it that way." But looking further into it, we find that the city has never had a contract like this before. It's unique. One example given for comparison is the Sassy Sal contract. That business within minutes can vacate the city's property. The next example given is the senior center. That's not even close. There the city owns the building and leases it to the county. It would have to be at the county's building on city property to make a comparison. The closest I can think of is Veterans Park. Is there a contract stating that without cause the city can tell the VFW and American Legion that they have to remove the cannon and the duster, that little tank, from Veterans Park? Mr. Wilbur? Is there a contract stating that they would have to remove them without cause?
Can't answer that. I have not ever looked at that.
Well, I say of course not. Why wouldn't they have to be removed? Because they're parts of history, of our history and of Port Clinton's history. And so is the lighthouse. But apparently you don't feel that way. The city has never dealt with a situation like this. Please don't try to use the "we've always done it that way" as a reason to approve this ordinance. It's not a valid reason. Like Veterans Park, this is a unique situation. Council and the administration apparently seem to think that having the lighthouse north of Derby Pond for an extended period of time would be an impediment to future commercial development in that area. If the lighthouse was there when Mr. Rose came to town, I don't think it would have been a deal breaker in a $60 million development. It would have just been a tiny blip on his radar screen. Mr. Rose always indicated that he respects the historical in his projects, and his projects reflect that. I think he might even have had the architects design on the lighthouse theme instead of the Victory Hotel, if the lighthouse had been there. You know, I've been thinking about the economic impact, and I in my head, I think that I can just see a docent down at the lighthouse talking with the people, the visitors, and saying, this lighthouse was out on the pier during Prohibition. Oh, if it could only talk. Being across Lake Erie from Canada, Port Clinton has a lot of history and stories about rum running from Canada. In fact, the Chamber of Commerce has a tour which now explains how things were in Port Clinton then. You should take it. That's what I hear a docent down there is telling visitors. And also, even some churches might be able to make some money on having the tour stop there and explain what part religion had in getting Prohibition passed. Piggyback on it. Ask for contributions. I don't know. Maybe have lunch or something. For a fee, of course. And this would be actors explaining the history. You may be skeptical, but right now, Windsor has a 5-hour tour doing exactly that. I'm not smart enough to think of these things up. I think these things up. I got it off the internet. But I know it's working in other places, and that lighthouse should be out there north of Derby Pond in a prominent place as a catalyst to make things like that happen right here. Thank you.
Rich Norgard, 4404 East Hunter Road.
Thank you. I'm Rich Norgard, president of Port Clinton Lighthouse Conservancy. Most of you know me. I'm not going to talk a lot about the ordinance tonight. I sent you all an email that I hope you all would all have read by now. So I think that you understand our objections to the agreement. This is a momentous day for the city of Port Clinton. You folks have a very serious decision to make. What I want to talk about is the people that made this possible. I want to talk about Daryl Brandt, who this has become his legacy. He took over the marina, and his little lighthouse was sitting there, and he decided that he wanted it preserved. I want to talk about the dedicated volunteers who have spent literally thousands of hours restoring this thing into an impeccable condition. And, you know, we've raised, we put out the figure $34,000 that we spent, but that doesn't come close to really adding up the total value in work and sweat and dedication that has gone into this. Probably when you factor in the free labor, we probably have spent $80,000 to $100,000 to restore this lighthouse. We'll probably spend another $20,000 to move it into the waterfront. This is a flawed contract, and it pains me to say that because we've come so far. And I want to just talk about a little bit. The most offensive part of this contract to us is a termination without cause clause. And we sort of, when we talk about this, you know, we sort of hear answers like, well, why are you worried about that? You know, have faith, trust the city. And my response to that is, after doing all this work and spending all this money and having all this dedication, all that we ask is a contract that sort of mirrors that same commitment. You know, 50 years from now, a city government can look at this contract and say, well, you know what, there's this clause here. It doesn't look to me like they really wanted it that much. You know, they put it here, but, you know, they think maybe it's movable. You know, it only weighs 12,000 pounds. And it's going to be sitting on concrete piers that are down to bedrock, and it's not that easy to move, but maybe they think, well, the Conservancy put it here, the Conservancy can move it. What we would like to see is something stating the intent of the city, something showing that this is more than just some business transaction that could go away in a month or 10 years or whatever. The submerged lands lease that we put together, that the city got for this property, is a 50-year lease. So, we're mucking around with making this a renewable 10-year lease and all this and that. If we want it to be permanent, why not have it just match the submerged lands lease and say it's a 50-year lease? There are plenty of other out clauses in the amendment, in the agreement, to cover the city's butt, so to speak. Excuse my French. If we're all going to be acting in good faith, let's do it all the way. Let's show that you really believe that this thing belongs out there. Give us some sign that you really do feel like it's going to be permanent, that you do feel like it's going to bring in visitors. I hear people say it's not going to have any economic impact on the city. People aren't going to come here just to see this lighthouse. I would just tell those people you're just wrong. Tell that to Diane Rosar at the Marblehead Lighthouse, where they get almost 1 million visitors a year, and one of the biggest questions they get is, where's the next lighthouse I can go to? Tell that to the Visitor Bureau over here that gets inundated with questions about where to see lighthouses. Tell that to the Chambers of Commerce of ports throughout the Great Lakes about their lighthouses and how popular they are. Tell that to the 42 members of the Lighthouse Tour that we had here. They tracked down Daryl Brandt to find out how they could see this lighthouse even though it was not on public display. Tell that to 35 photography students who made a trip here from Kentucky to photograph our lighthouse. But this is more about economic impact. This is the city's most iconic structure. Look behind you. Look at the seal. Please, look at the seal of the city of Port Clinton. What do you see? Prominently displayed, you see this lighthouse. And that's not just because it happened to be here one time. That's because lighthouses are iconic structures. This lighthouse was out there on the pier for 56 years, and anybody that came to town by boat or by car on Perry Street saw that lighthouse. That's the one thing that they probably went away from this lighthouse, from this city, remembering, is that lighthouse was there. It's a vivid symbol of our rich maritime history. And most important of all, putting that lighthouse out there will restore pride in this community. I was born and raised here. This city has lost its pride. Give them something to be prideful about again. That is this lighthouse. Please search your conscience and your hearts. Take a close look at this agreement. I hope you will agree with us that it's flawed. If you do pass a measure tonight, I encourage you to not waive the 3 readings. Do not make this emergency measure. It's not necessary. The city still has to submit for a sublease for this property. I'm sorry.
Your time has passed. I have given you additional time as it
Okay.
is.
Well, I'm sorry. Thank you for your time.
Madam President, can I ask just a few questions?
Yes.
Mr. Norgard, I did have the opportunity to look at the email that you sent.
Yes.
Which came across around 12:30 this afternoon, but I believe some of the other members of council hadn't had a chance. I just happened to when I was having lunch. So, thank you for the email. I did have a couple of questions.
Okay.
That if I could have maybe 5 minutes we could discuss. Because we haven't spoken about this directly since this has come before us. So, I think it was the first email you sent to me. So, in it, on the maybe 4th paragraph, we anticipate historical marker designation for the Ohio Historical Society, recognizing its historical significance to our community. Can you discuss that a little bit? I think it's the first time I've heard that.
Well, we had, and thank you for the question. We, in our research on this lighthouse, one of the things that we've learned is that this is the only remaining wood pier headlight left on the Great Lakes Pier. We had consulted early on with the Ohio Historical Society about getting a marker status. They said, they looked at it and said, once the lighthouse is out there, even though it's not going to be in its original location, which was at the end of the West Pier of the Portage River, as long as it's close enough to that contiguous area, it would probably still get approval. And we told them where we had planned to put it, which is the current location we're talking about, and they said it would likely be approved. So it would basically give us a marker on the lighthouse reflecting its historical status.
I think that'd be great. Do you know what the timeline is for that once you apply or whatever the process is?
I don't
I'm
know.
not
that-
familiar
I don't.
with this.
I'm sorry, I don't know the term.
Okay. You had the attachment with the statement of intent.
Yes.
So I know that I want to learn a little bit more about that because that was the first time we had, I think, that at least I had seen that. I think, was that the first time you shared that
That's correct.
remedy with us?
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk about your budget for upkeep after installation, what the preservation and maintenance may look like going into the future?
Well, we have we have a maintenance manual. This thing has been meticulously destroyed. Excuse me. Restored. Sorry. It's still there, Daryl. This thing has been meticulously restored, and provided that the maintenance is kept up, it won't cost that much. So it'll be some occasional painting and caulking and so forth. We intend to keep a war chest, as it were, of $10,000 sort of always in the bank, which is more than enough to cover, damage that might occur. But frankly, maintenance, upkeep, general upkeep won't be that expensive.
Can you describe the funding stream for your $10,000 war chest? Is that through donations? And the reason I ask is I'm thinking a little bit longer term. So what happens when the money may get tight on your end?
We actually, we have raised a lot of money. I'm proud to say we have over $30,000 that we're sitting on right now. We have managed to raise a lot of money just from donations, and we haven't really started soliciting money yet. Once the lighthouse is out there, then we will more actively begin raising money through a series of endeavors, which will include merchandising. We're going to have regular tours of the lighthouse, and there will be a minimal fee to go into that. So we will
Do you have
have
an idea of what you'd like to see that set at?
like how often?
The minimal admission fee.
$2-3. We will set up basically a Friends of the Lighthouse type organization, and we will instruct those people sort of to be docents, and they will be conducting tours of the lighthouse. We have been very lucky to get grant monies, which has been our primary funding stream. We'll be doing fundraisers.
What's the grant source?
Well, different ones, but we've gotten money from Stenson
Okay.
Foundation, Ottawa County Community Foundation. Quite frankly, we don't expect funding to be a problem,
Okay.
just because of what we have. I mean, people really want to know how they can donate money to the lighthouse.
In the second paragraph of your email, and I'm almost done. You referenced that the Conservancy coordinated, supervised, and financed the preparation of the submerged land lease.
Yes.
Can you estimate a cost of that financing that you referenced?
We spent, anybody have the figure on what we paid?
$1,300.
We paid $1,300 to the architect, to the engineering firm that did the plans up that needed to go with it.
Okay.
And then basically we did the paperwork and coordinated that through ODNR.
Okay. Thanks. I look forward to seeing it out there, so I appreciate it. Thanks for your email.
Thank
I'll
you.
look at it. Thank you.
John Kapler, 416 South Vineyard.
It's 4165.
Oh, 41.
Members of council, my name is John Koppler, and I got involved in this project for the Conservancy because they wanted to apply for and obtain a 501c3 designation from Internal Revenue Service so that contributions to it would be tax deductible, and we were able to secure that. I was subsequently asked, and I've done this at no charge, so they're not spending money foolishly on a lawyer, but I was subsequently asked to assist them with negotiation for a permanent location for the lighthouse, which I have done. I will say that the negotiation process has been very challenging and frustrating. It's hard to negotiate when you can't get answers from the other side on issues that are of concern to you. And frankly, the legislation that you're asked to consider tonight seems strange to me. In over 40 years of practice, I've represented a lot of organizations,